And we're back in studio once again for another episode of Pacific Indians Chatter. I'm your host, Cody Kelly, joined with my co-host, Scott Brown.
Good morning.
And my student correspondent, Charlie Meyer.
Morning.
Charlie is getting used to these Saturday morning early wake-ups whenever he doesn't have track.
Yeah, he beat me here today. Nice work, Charlie.
Most high school freshmen would probably want to sleep into about noon on these days, but not Charlie. Well, I'm actually assuming he probably would like to sleep until then, but he's up here with us. Let's jump into Riverbend. They had some action this week on the track side of things. The girls took second overall out of 12 teams, and the boys took fourth in their meet. I believe it was at Herman. Alana Reeder was first in the high jump. Ben Smith and Grace Dreyer were first in the mile. The boys 4x800, Ben Smith, Braden Milberg, Riley Milberg, and Grant Orris were first as well. Cheyenne Bronson first in the long jump. First, Ariana Edmonds in the hurdles. And second, Maddie Rush in the hurdles. So the Riverbend track team got a meet in finally. They've been rained out a couple times, and they did some pretty good work.
Yeah, the girls seem to be tearing it up, and I know Ben Smith is hitting his strides too over there, and they've got a couple big meets left in the season before they're done.
Yeah, Coach Missy and Coach O'Neill have them going in the right way right now. All right, and that'll do it for Riverbend as they're getting ready to wrap their season up in the next couple weeks on the track side of things. How about we go up to 425 Indian Warpath Drive?
Yeah, I'll start us off with the speech team. They're competing today at state, 6 individual events. We will have the results in our next show, and hopefully we have some good news. I know the parents and the students are real excited to get it going up there today and finish off their season at state and see if they can bring home some hardware. The soccer team had a couple of big games this week. They ended up beating St. James on Monday night. We had no stats to report on that game. I know it was a big scoring event. I think they might have touched 8 goals again. And in soccer, 8-0 is a short game. Is that right? I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
Yeah, when you get to 8-0, it's a game over. Kind of like a baseball game was 15-3 and 10-5 now. But senior night Thursday, we kept hearing the announcer with all of the goals, and there was quite a few as the Lady Indians, dismantled the DeSoto Dragons 8-0 hat tricks on the night by Abby Hall and Madison Land. Abby's in the leaders in St. Louis in goals scored. The good sophomore athlete. And Langenbacher and Hemingway also scored a goal. Unfortunately, we had no JV stats for that night. I think they did win from the way it sounded down on the baseball field, but the announcer was busy with all the goals scored for soccer.
Yeah, it was another night where I got to throw my hat on the field twice for the 2 hat tricks that going on in the varsity game during the that would have been during the JV game that night. Golf. Those of you that don't know what's been going on with golf this season, it's been rough for them. They haven't even been able to play meets. I think this was their 4th meet they had this week. They lost the duel Thursday to Union, 183 to 196. Connor Bartell and Bo Anderson both shot 45. Friday, they had the all-day event at Sullivan, the Scramble. We didn't really hear it.
I got a number. I believe Bartell and Anderson both together shot a 78, but they did not medal.
Okay.
So there's your golf update.
All right, and then golf, I believe, has conference on this Monday coming up. We're going to try to have Coach Shimza in studio for an interview to talk a little bit about the golf season. Like I said, it's been kind of short, unfortunately, for them. But hopefully they can get it heated up as we move into conference. Baseball was busy this week. 3 games on the varsity and JV levels. Monday night, travel to Sullivan for the Four Rivers Conference matchup in what used to be just a bitter rivalry.
Yeah, if you weren't seeing 2 teams get after it, you might see a coach get tossed out of the game. You could see something at one of those events, and anymore it's not quite as competitive, but hopefully it will be back in the future.
Yeah, I mean, right now, at least it's in the Indians' favor. The Indians won 14-2 that night. Jake Collier, freshman, got the win on the mound, had 2 unearned runs at the end there. Andrew Payne, 2 hits and a triple. Ethan Brosher, 3 hits and a double, and Aiden Beanstein had 2 hits. The JV also rolled that night 14-0 with Trey Kulik and Jordan Williams on the mound.
Yeah, both of those guys for the combined win. It was a chilly night, and Trey Kulik goes up there on the mound, our freshman. younger brother of Weston Kulik, and he's a bulldog. He goes after the strike zone, and he did a great job. A lot of my guys competed well and got several hits on that night.
And then Tuesday night, the DeSoto Dragons came to town to play the Indians at the reservation. The Indians got a big win that night, too, 9-2. Weston Kulik went complete game, 7 innings, giving up only 2 earned, and picked up the big win. That was the night that the DeSoto Dragons jumped out 2-0 in the top of the first. And
yeah, West kind of struggled a little bit early in the game and really kind of rebounded and finished really strong.
Yeah, for him going 7 innings, I was in the bullpen a lot. But
yeah, I didn't see you much that game.
No, I was back and forth to the bullpen. It's one of those nights. But like I said, the Indians kind of rallied and battled from behind and came back with 4 runs in the first to get the lead, and then that was all she pretty much wrote.
And we faced their left-handed ace that night, the kid that had the best stats for the Dragons and had a couple of good wins for him. And we did rather well with the sticks, I thought.
Yeah, Brosher, again, with a couple hits that night. And so Ethan Simpson also chipped in with multiple hits, Matt Rinke and Weston Kulik. JV side of things, it was a 10-0 win, I believe.
Yeah, DeSoto came in with their JV, and Caden Mathis got up on the mound, the freshman right-hander for us, for his first appearance of the season in freshman or JV, and pitched rather well. Luke Gerling kind of finished that night off, and Connor Mooney continued his hot hitting as well for the JV Indians in our 10-0 win.
And then on Thursday night, the Indians hosted another big conference game with Owensville. Owensville's a very good team this year in this conference, and we saw their best. Jack Meyer threw for the Indians and took a no-hitter into the 7th. He had a 1 out in the 7th, I believe, so 6 1/3, a no-hit ball before a little ground ball that snuck through broke it up.
Yeah, tough way to lose a no-no because he was in complete command of that whole game.
Then Ethan Brosher with the big night, 3 hits, including a double. I believe he scored both of the Indians' runs in that 2-0 win.
The Brant kid from Owensville, he was sharp. He showed last night why he possibly is the second best pitcher in the Four Rivers because he was a handful. Would we only have 7 hits against him, I guess?
Yeah, and like I said, Andrew Payne had a big 2-out single that drove in a run. And Jack Meyer did a great job of taking a pitch the other way and driving it to second baseman, which drove in the second run for the Indians.
Yeah, Jack had a great night overall.
The JV was in a tight one. They won that one 4-3. That was kind of a fun game to be a part of. Drew Beffa and Cooper Burrington combined for the win, and Connor Mooney had a big night offensively.
Yeah, you call it fun. I call it frustrating. We'd been really playing very well, and I don't think we brought the intensity to the yard that night. And I told them, I said, a couple of your teammates picked you guys up tonight because as a team, it was one of those nights that the opponent outplayed us, and we were lucky enough to squeak out a 4-3 win and keep our undefeated conference hopes alive heading towards the final stretch as well. We hopefully are right there with the varsity when we can, raise those FRC titles this year.
Yeah, the varsity and JV currently sit 4-0 in conference, so a couple more left. A big one with Union, obviously, down in the future.
A real big one.
All right, let's take it over to track, and I will let you and Charlie handle the track.
Yeah, Charlie, I think the Tracksters had a 9th and 10th grade meet at Sullivan this week, and a couple of results before I let you get going. I know Liberty, Blackburn, and Lillian Prokowski finished 1 and 2 in the high jump. Liberty had a 3rd place in a triple. The girls 4x2 of Bonner, Reed, Blackburn, and Lexi Lay got 1st place. Kira Schaefer 4th in the shot. Liberty 4th in the 200. Layla Bonner 5th. 3rd place overall. Good showing for the girls. And then I know Dylan Stout has been improving in the 1600 and 3200 meter runs. He got 6th and 5th place respectively. But Charlie, go ahead and add to the track info for us.
Yeah. So the varsity relay at Washington got canceled due to rain. But the JV team did go to Sullivan on Thursday. And the girls placed 3rd at 12th, and the boys got 9th. There was no placements on the boys' side. However, they had a lot of placements on the girls, and that included several first-place finishes, including Lexi Lay placing 1st in all 4 of her events, with 100 hurdles, 300 hurdles, the long jump, and the girls 4x2 relay. The relay team includes Lexi Lay, Layla Bonner, Liberty Blackburn, and Bailey Reed. The relay team finished in a standing 4 seconds in front of the 2nd place, and Liberty Blackburn also placed 1st in the high jump. We go to Herman on Tuesday for a varsity only meet, and the javelin got a new thrower at this JV meet because he just went in and tried it out, and Lucas Carlton, and he is now going to the varsity meet at Herman on Tuesday.
So he did throw at the meet and did rather well?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's good, Charlie. Now, when's the conference meet coming up? Is that at Pacific?
I don't know where it is. No, it's at Owensville.
It's at Owensville? And it's not next week, probably the week after?
Yeah, it's the week after.
Track's going to wind up, get done real quick. I think we're 20-something days of school left. We're going to snap and it's going to be over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think track and golf kind of wrap up their seasons a little bit earlier than soccer and baseball with the traditional district tournament that we have. As we move on there too, don't want to forget about this. Friday was the Special Olympics field day here at Pacific High School.
What a great day. I know the kids that get to help with that love it. They really love that day.
Yeah, we've had some baseball players help over the years. It's one of their favorite things to do. It looked like, from what I've seen and from who I talked to, is all of our Merrimack Valley students that were here in attendance had a great day. It looked like it was a well-run event again. Miss Stewart does a great job up here with that.
She's tremendous.
So just wanted to give a quick shout-out to them. Before we move into everybody's favorite segment, though, we did not mention our guest this week. We have Coach George Hinkle on here with us in just a little bit, and let me tell you, that was a pretty fun interview.
Yeah, those of you that only know George from afar, what a great human being, and he's electric to listen to. He's one of the best motivators I've ever been around as a kid. And when George played at Pacific, I was in the gym and on the sidelines with my dad when he was coaching here. He coached George in basketball and also in football as an assistant, and he was just an awesome sight to behold. Just a huge, large guy that was athletic as heck, and little did we know what he would accomplish in our town and for his family.
He mentioned your dad. He mentioned my dad briefly in those interviews. His draft story is really unique. There's not probably one like it, so I would definitely say you should listen in and hear about it. Before we do that, though, I know Charlie had a little something for us this week, so... All right, Charlie, who'd you catch up with this week?
I sat down with Coach Brett Jones. He's the long distance coach for our track team, and distance is a bit of a different animal, so it's pretty interesting to hear about that. So,
all right, well, let's go see what he had to say.
This is Charlie Meyer, and I'm here with Coach Brett Jones. He is the long distance coach for our track team. How are you doing today, Coach?
Doing awesome, Charlie. Great to be with you.
So long distance is kind of the black sheep of track. You know, it's different than everything else. There's nothing, tell us about it.
Well, as you said, everybody in track loves the short events, right? And so as the distance coach, I'm kind of the crazy one. And what most sports do is they punish their people for running long distance. Well, our guys, it's what we do. And you have to have a little bit of mental toughness and kind of have that crazy to you. But that's why I love it, is because you really can take any athlete, and if they're willing to say, hey, I want to do this, you can make someone into a long distance runner. And I know it's not for everybody, but it is one of those things that if you say, hey, I want to do it, you can achieve that goal.
Yeah, the guys we got here, they all really like doing distance, and it's what they do. So, so you're a volunteer here. So what is your job away from track?
So I actually am the student pastor and associate pastor up at the Ridge Church. I moved up here about 4 years ago and took that position. And I get the privilege of working with high school students ages 6 to 12 at the church. And so it kind of works out perfect here to volunteer at the high school because I get to see some of those very students. And I love running, and it's just one of those things that they go hand in hand. So I'm always getting to invest in students.
And so most coaches have some sports history, especially in what they coach. So give us some background on your high school and college sports careers.
So I did a little bit of everything. I'm not great at any sport, but I was very competitive at all sports. So I grew up playing t-ball, playing some different basketball in the community, and even learned to play soccer a little bit. But as I entered into my high school career, I wanted to do a little bit more running, played basketball, and actually thought I was going to go to college for basketball. But as you guys know, I'm not a very big person, didn't have the size, and so I actually got involved my freshman year up at Hannah-LaGrange University. And so I did cross country in the fall and did track and field in the spring, and even threw in a little bit of swimming. So any sport, I love to compete. I love to use my talents and my gifts for the glory of God, and just very thankful to have sports in my life, because it really did give me a great foundation, taught me a lot of life lessons, and just excited about how I get to plug in here at the school.
And I think that's going to wrap it up for the interview. Thanks for being here today, even though we were supposed to be able to meet the guy right now, but at least you gave us the opportunity to do this.
All right, thank you, Charlie. And now we jump into everybody's favorite segment, at least the student athlete's favorite segment, from what it sounds like at the high school. Performance of the week. I told Mr. Thompson the other day we need to get something made to put on a Letterman's jacket for kids that win a performance of the week. A little logo or something. That'd be pretty fun. Then they could really be all about it. But let me let you start it off this week, Coach Brown.
I guess I'll take number one status here for performance of the week. The guy I picked, he was my guy last year in the spring. Had one of the best seasons of a JV baseball hitter that I've had, I guess, in recent memory, maybe.
Better than mine?
Yeah, well, just a little better than yours, Cody. Because usually if a guy can really swing the bat, I don't see him that often on my team. Coach Reed usually nabs him pretty quick. But as a freshman last year, this guy set records, I think, in RBIs and average and on-base percentage. He was just a gifted hitter. And that is sophomore Ethan Brosher. He's our center fielder on the varsity baseball team. He's my performance of the week. This week he has stepped it up big time, 2 conference games and a big game against DeSoto. He has 9 hits in those 3 games. He's raised his average overall to 500. 13 games into the season. You'll find his name among the area leaders if you look in the STL Today stats section for baseball. He patrols center field. And I know going into the season, you had a little bit of worries about the outfield, whether it was going to come together and be solid for us. And man, have all 3 of those guys kind of solidified those 3 outfield positions. He takes the middle. He tracks down balls really well. He's a lefty out there, even though he bats right-handed, but he puts in extra time, extra swings. He really loves baseball, and he's got a lot of personal goals, team goals, plays travel ball in the summer. He's really been big for us right now. We've kind of got on his back a little bit this week and at the plate, and we've needed to get on somebody's back. And he's tearing it up right now, and knock on wood, I hope Ethan continues.
Yeah, he's been red hot this week, and kind of leading into this week. Charlie, what do you got for us?
So I'm going to go with Lexi Lay for placing first in all of her events. That includes the 100 hurdles, 300 hurdles, and the 4x2 relay, and then the long jump. And even though it was a JV meet, she definitely had some competition, especially on those 300 hurdles. There was someone from Rolla who definitely gave her a run for her money. Then she got 40 of the team's total points. And then Liberty Blackburn, I'm going to give a shout out to for getting 31 of the team's total points for being in that 4x2 winning team and getting first in the high jump.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like playing a game on easy mode whenever you drop Lexi down, because she's been running varsity meets all year and been tearing it up, but she still had to go out and perform and did a great job. For me, there was a bunch of different options. You know, we had Weston Kulik had a good night on the mound. Abby Hall had another hat trick, but she's already been my performance of the week twice.
Jack Meyer.
Trying to avoid there. Jack Meyer. Charlie Meyer for coming in early this morning. But I guess we'll go with Madison Land with her big hat trick the other night for the Indians in that big 8-0 win on senior night. And then my honorable mention is the seniors for the soccer program. They've given that soccer program, a bunch of their time, and it's well deserved. I'm glad they were able to pick up a big win on senior night.
Yeah, Emmeline Steele. She's done a great job playing goalie for this team for her whole career. And I think the other one was the Snyder girl. She's been hurt quite a bit, but what a talented soccer player. What a great person she is, and two great leaders for that soccer program.
Yeah, I'll say Emma's one of our mentors out at Riverbend and does a great job there too. All right, as we move outside of that, once again, I just want to wish the speech team good luck. I believe DECA is at Internationals this week as well. We'll try to get some information from both of them next week. Check our Twitter for some updates too. Our guests will be posted on Twitter for next week's show. We're still working on it. Looks like it's going to be Coach Shimza as long as we can get things to line up. But we also have some other names in there too that we're working on to try to finish off the season.
Indian baseball's senior night Thursday in the week coming.
Thursday against St. James. That'll be flipped. The JV will play first and the varsity will play second under the lights. So if you got nothing else to do, come on out and watch some Indian baseball playing pretty well. You got soccer that's playing pretty well too. Come watch some of that. You got track this week, Charlie?
Yeah, Herman.
Herman, they got to meet this week. I mean, if you want to go to Herman, I'm not a fan of that trip. Golf has their conference meet tomorrow, Monday, I believe that's at Merrimack Lakes. I'd have to double check. So hopefully they can get rolling and get going there. All right, but don't go anywhere because when we come back, we're going to have Coach George Hinkle in studio with us. And let me tell you, it's a very fun interview to listen to. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. And we're back in studio. I'm joined today with my special guest, former Pacific football head coach, George Hinkle. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me on today. I appreciate it.
So let's just jump right in because there's a lot to cover with you. You're a PHS alumni, which is another big thing on this show. We try to highlight that as much as possible. So in your time at PHS, we'll get into the football, but before we do that, were there other sports and activities you were involved in as well?
Yeah, when I was in high school, we, were able to play different sports. I ran track, played basketball. Basketball wasn't my favorite sport. Coach Brown was the head coach at that time, and a lot of the players that I played with, Tim Myers, Chuck Brooks, Dan Miller, Mike Schmidt, and so Keith Wright, a lot of the players, a lot of the names that their sons are going through right now and sound familiar. So so I got a chance to play some other sports, and it was really nice.
All right, and as you mentioned, some guys, as we talk about the football side of things, you were part of some pretty good teams here at Pacific. I believe the 82 team was a district championship, conference championship team, somewhere in there.
Yeah, back in '82, some of these memories have gotten away from me. I'm not as young as I used to be, and my memory is not as good as it used to be. But Kenny Haley, Pat Haley, Don Tomnitz, Ron Tobin, and the list of guys just goes on and on. Glenn Mayrose, Mike Butler was part of those teams early in the years, and so. But the championship team in '82, we had to go down to Jackson. We went down to Jackson and played down there. Mel Buck was on there. Scotty Fiedler was on there, and so there's a lot of names that are here at Pacific that were on that football team.
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of touched on it a little bit. What was it like to be part of that good of a team? One of the best teams we had in that program's history so far.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, you really don't think about how good you are until history plays its role, and then you see some of the teams that struggle to get to 500, and you see some of the teams struggle to get to where we were at, but you don't think about some of those things when you're playing. But now when I look back at it, I see that it was something that we should have cherished a little bit more. And I think when we get together, Ron and I see Ron playing golf together, and we think about some of the times we had together. It's like, man, we were doing some good things, and we were able to put some good things together. And with Coach Ngolia and Bill Dennis and Coach Larry Crooks, those guys were great coaches. They really took the time with us and allowed us to be and put things together and put the team together and put defenses together, allowed us to be in good positions. And don't get me wrong, we had some good athletes on those teams too. We had some good athletes.
Yeah, I know Ron Tobin pretty well personally too. I can imagine he was pretty fun back in high school. Kind of moving from that, still sort of in the high school thing, when did you start getting the notice from some of those bigger colleges, and how was the recruiting process as a whole for you?
Now, the one thing that I have to think about, back in '83, we had a young man by the name of Alvin Miller who came from Kirkwood High School. And Alvin Miller at that time was probably in the top 3 or 4 young men being recruited in the country. And so he had teams coming from all over the country to recruit him. And I think personally that when you come into a town and you start looking at high school games, a lot of the coaches came in on Thursday and Friday. And so they started looking at rosters of kids with size and different things. And I mean, I was a sophomore, and I met with one of the coaches from Arizona as a sophomore. And he said, well, George, you're young, you got a long ways to go, and we'll just keep an eye on you from that point. And from that point on, it just the process of being recruited, talking to different coaches, getting letters from different places, and filling out a lot of information. And, when you get a questionnaire, you put your name on it, speed, and all the other stuff, and you send it off, and a lot of times you don't get a reply. And so that's part of the process far as recruiting is concerned.
I would say the process has changed just a little bit over time with the film and everything that's available to coaches all over the country now. But you ultimately decided on Arizona, which we'll jump into there a little bit. You played in a Sun Bowl and an Aloha Bowl. I believe head coach Larry Smith was there for the first 3, and then Dick Tomey for your senior year. So, I mean, how was that time at Arizona?
Coach Smith was, being at Arizona, coming from a school like a high school like this of 1,000 students, and then go to a university where you have 40,000 students, it was a little different. And the one thing about Coach Smith, when we as freshmen played and practiced together, oftentimes we practice against freshmen, guys that were just coming in. He didn't put us against the juniors or even the sophomores. He wouldn't put us with those guys. He'd put us with our own class. Being at a big university, they recruited 42, 45 kids. And so you had basically a freshman class of high school kids. And so that really helped us out. That helped us to build confidence in ourselves. We had some guys that were, All-American, blue chip All-Americans and running backs and linemen and different things. And so when you lined up against those guys and played against them and you had some success, it kind of helped you. It kind of built your confidence. And so that was the thing that I liked about Coach Smith being at Arizona. And like you said, he was there for my first 4 years, because I redshirted. And then Coach Tomey came in my last year, and we were able to, we did some good things. He was a good coach, and so we had some good players. We made some. We didn't have the record that we wanted to with Coach Smith, but he was able to pull things together. Did some good recruiting, got some good athletes from different places, and so Coach Smith was the guy, though. He was the man. He came here to Pacific. He even came to my house, and we got a chance to sit down and talk. And I think that's what really influenced my mom. That Coach Smith was a really a hometown guy. He and Mike Berry came to my house and spoke with me and said they wanted to recruit me to come to Arizona. And And I think when I left here in January, and I think it was like 4 below. When I got out to Arizona, it was 80, and so that kind of helped me make some decisions. I went to the University of Wisconsin, and it was 40 below up there. So I said, well, maybe I don't want to come here. But they had a lot of good, Al Toon was up there, and Tim Crumry was up there at Wisconsin, but it was a nice place. The University of Wisconsin was really nice. Madison was nice, but I just chose Arizona over that.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably pick Arizona too with that weather. I know you guys have made a couple golf trips back out there. So speaking of your time at Arizona, are there any characters or friends that stick out? I know one that went on to play for the Philadelphia Eagles, who we were just actually talking to prior to this.
Yeah, there's so many young men that you think about. Byron Evans, the guy that we were talking about, he went on to play for Philadelphia. David Adams, my fraternity brothers, Jerry Beasley and Danny Lockett and Ryan Vickers. And like I said, the list of names go on and on of young men that I played with and extremely good athletes. When you talk about athletes and being able to do, dunk the basketball if you played basketball and have a 30, 40-inch vertical jump and broad jump 10 or 12 feet, and so just extremely incredible athletes that I got a chance to play with and the relationships that I build with them on and off the field. Byron has been here in Missouri every year almost, since we've been apart. We built a relationship back in '83, in '84, and the relationship has continued to grow stronger and stronger each year as we go along. And not only with him, but like I said, with Jerry and some of the other players that we've been able to to be on the team with, and David, like I said, the list goes on of players.
All right, now as we move out of the college side of things, and we talked about it a little bit actually before we started, the draft process. How was your draft process? The NFL Combine, I mean, it wasn't as marketable as it is now. It wasn't on TV. But how was all of that work leading up, and then pro day workouts at Arizona and stuff like that?
Well, when I got realized that I was going to maybe get drafted, Gunther Cunningham at that time was the defensive line coach at San Diego. And he came to Arizona and worked me out, and he said, "George, we're going to draft Joe Campbell." At that time, he was at New Mexico State. I can't remember which school he was at. He said, "We're going to draft him earlier than you, about the 4th round." And at that time, they had 12 rounds. They have 7 now, but at that time they had 12 rounds. And he said, "If you're available in our later rounds," because we got later picks, 10, 11, and 12. He said, "We have picks then, so we'll try to get you during that time." And at that case, they recruited me as 11th pick, 11th B pick. So they picked somebody in the 11th round before me. But I was still able to go to the Combine, and some of my the times that I remember the most at the Combine, as a defensive lineman, you had to do the bench press, you had to do the vertical jump, you had to do the 40-yard dash, and a lot of cone drills and different stuff. And so I was there, and Neil Smith, defensive end out of Nebraska, was there, and got drafted by the Chiefs. He was there, and they asked him. They said, "Neil, are you gonna what kind of what do you want to do?" He said, "I'm going to do the 40-yard dash, and that's about it. That's all I'm going to do." And he got warmed up. He ran a 4.52, I believe, at 270 pounds, and he put his clothes back on and left. And so I was like, wow, like I said, that was a memorable time there at the Combine, and so that's something that I'll never forget. But just the process of being drafted, having an opportunity to play at the next level, was something that was really a blessing from the Lord, to be able to play at the next level and be able to be in the locker room with some of the players: Leslie O'Neal, Junior Seau, Billy Ray Smith, Gil Byrd, Martin Bayless, Lee Williams, Joe Phillips, Burt Grossman, Ronnie Harmon. line. You know, the list of guys just goes on of great athletes, great players, and really smart. You know, and so I was excited about that.
Well, and I asked my dad this question to see if he sort of remembered how it happened. Since I guess we can tell that story too. You and my dad were friends from kindergarten all the way up.
Yeah. We Benton and I, we've been together all of our lives. He you know, went through kindergarten at first and second grade, and your grandmother took care of us, did so many things for us. And Grandpa, both of them did a lot of things for our family, did a lot of things for us, always fixed us food, and I was at home being at with the Kellys, and so Benton and I were always together.
And that's why I asked him a little prep stuff for this interview, hoping he could remember some things and give me a few. But we were talking about the draft, and you know, now it's all over social media and TV, and everything's out there. Back then, you're talking 12 rounds. I'm imagining it wasn't covered as anywhere near like it is now. So how did you get that news that you were officially picked?
I was at that time, the first round was the most important round because that's when you had all the drafts. And at that time, I believe they actually had it on TV. They may have had it on ESPN at that time with the draft, and it was only the first round because they did go to New York or went somewhere and showed who they drafted and different things. But I was on the second day being drafted, and Coach. Being such a late draft choice, you have a chance of going free agent, and I think either I was talking to the Cowboys or talking to the Raiders. I might have been talking to the Cowboys at that time, and they were saying, talking to the coach, and they were saying, George, the draft is about over. If you don't get drafted, we want you to come free agent to the Cowboys, and I said, okay. And you could hear the coach in the background said, oh, George, you just got drafted by the Chargers. And he said, and I said, oh, okay. And at that time, the phone clicked and I said, okay, I'll call you later. And I clicked over, and it was the Chargers, Coach Cunningham. And I can't remember the GM at that time, but they were on the other line.
Well, that's actually a pretty fun story to hear. You got picked by the Chargers, and then the Cowboys were the ones to let you know you were drafted, and they didn't take you. That's probably hasn't happened very often, honestly. So now you're going to San Diego, start the next football chapter. How much different was that game at that level?
The one thing that's different about from high school to college to professional is the speed. The speed of the game is so much faster. The speed of the game, and also the players that you're playing against, more craftier, smarter, stronger, more athletic. And so when you talk about going from Arizona over to San Diego, the offensive linemen, like I said, they're so much faster, so much stronger, and they're crafty. And that's the part of the game that a lot of people may not understand is when you've been in the league for 4 or 5, 6 years, you're able to block people a little bit different. You're able to manipulate people a little bit different. You can influence them a lot differently. Same way on defense. You can line up a certain way and change positions. As a defensive player, you can move a little bit, where offensive player is pretty stationary. And so you learn all those little tricks to help you, especially when you slow down, especially when you get a little bit older, and it's across the board, whether it's defensive line, whether it's linebackers, whether it's safeties, corners, they cheat a little bit more, inside, outside, back up a little bit more, so whatever it takes to help you to not get burnt, to improve your craft.
I know the one my dad still talks about. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see any of those games because I was either not born yet or way too young. My dad still talks about the coldest game he ever went to was in Kansas City to watch you play. And he said you pulled a hamstring or something that game, and you were over there trying to work it out. And while you were doing that, you kicked the heater kind of around, blowing it up at him in the stands and all the group that was up there to watch you. He said that's one of his favorite stories from going to watch it because he was like, it had to be -10.
Yeah,
it was just terrible.
Yeah, it was. Kansas City. Kansas City's probably one of the coldest place to play at, besides Pittsburgh, and the fans there, they don't make it any better, especially when they're throwing rocks and snowballs and stuff like that. And so, but it was something. That time has gone by so fast, and your dad coming to the game and my parents coming, all that time has really gone by fast. And but it was a great experience. I did pull a hamstring when we played Kansas City. They had Duron Cherry and some of the athletes that were really there for blocking punts and playing in the secondary and stuff. And I was on the punt team, and we had to line up against Duron Cherry. And so our whole punt team had to know where his alignment was and had to identify him, and it was important to know that. And so you're there in the game, and so you're really focused. Being a special teams guy at that time, I was playing special teams, and so we were able to get focused on that. And like I said, unfortunately, I did pull a hamstring and didn't get a chance to play very much.
How much different would you say today's game has changed just from when you played?
Well, today's game, I mean, it's still a physical game. I mean, it's the young men, the men there are physical, bigger, stronger, and it's the same way it was, 25 years ago. The guys were physical, they were stronger, smart, athletic. The shoulder pads a little bit, some of the equipment's a little bit lighter, so now you can run a little bit better. When you look at some of the athletes now, a lot of them don't wear very much equipment, because everything is about speed and quickness and being able to do some of those things. But the game is still physical.
Okay, as we move out of your playing days, we're going to get to kind of the thing that people recently kind of know you for is the coaching. And everybody kind of thinks, you jump back into coaching here, but you didn't. You started off, I believe, at Union, just working on the defensive side of things.
Yeah, I worked up at Union with Brent Eckley. He was the head coach there at that time, and he's currently down at Jackson, Missouri. And so Coach Exley allowed me to come in, work with the defensive line, linebackers, and different things. And so that was my first place to do some coaching at, and to really kind of get my feet wet. When you think about coaching and playing, they're two different things. They're two different. It's just different, going from a player to a coach to where you're trying to get a person in the best position to play the position that they are. And so it's totally different. Your mindset, it's a lot different. There's a lot more time into it. As a football player, when we got done with practice, you could go home, but as a coach, you spend hours and hours and hours breaking down film, trying to see which player is going to be the best guy to get on the field and understands the game. And so the list of things go on and on when you talk about coaching. But, yeah, I did start out at Union.
And you mentioned all that stuff. So what made you want to really get into coaching then?
Well, I mean, for one, I had two boys. I got two boys, George and Jeff, and both of them wanted to play, and they're athletic, so they played other sports too. They ran track and played for Coach Van Leer basketball, and they really enjoyed that. And so now they talk about they wish they would have played for Coach Reed some baseball. And so, but now they that's the reason why I really wanted to get in and to be able to coach them and spend some time with them and be able to help them along the way.
And I think that's going to maybe give us a little bit of the answer as we move into this next one. So you took over a Pacific program that was at its lowest, 49 straight losses. Most coaches would see that and think that's not really the job you want. But I know you're obviously an alma mater, graduate here of Pacific, and then as you said, you had your kids coming up. I mean, were those the biggest reasons as to why to take this job?
Yeah, I think that, like you said, that was my son's being here, and also there's a lot of great athletes here at Pacific High School. I mean, and when you look at our baseball and our basketball and track and they were here. I mean, I was just able to put some things together, put a plan together, and they were the ones who executed all the plays. They did all. I didn't play a down as a coach, and we never do. We might as coaches put young men in good positions, but they're the ones that have to make the play. They got to make the tackle. They got to throw the ball. They got to make the catch. And so we may get the pat on the back for it, but it's the young men that's putting things together for you to have success.
So then we'll talk about '08, your first year here. I don't know if you remember the St. James game up at St. James. I remember it pretty well because I was a junior in high school, and I was part of the crowd that got to rush the field. But how nice was it to get that first one to snap the streak? I think it ended at 54.
Yeah, that I can remember a little bit of it, and I can remember, that when you think about winning and losing, as a coach, you want to be able to put your young men in the best position, and I can remember some things, but some of the things I really can't remember about the win itself. But you just want to put the young man in a good position to be able to win. And Coach Harlan up at that time at St. James, he was a great coach. He and I talked prior to the game. We continued to talk, and so he's a good coach, and we were able to kind of put things together and put a win together. That was really good for Pacific.
Yeah, like I said, I remember a lot of it because I remember we came back and turned the lights on here at Pacific and hung out for a while too on the field to celebrate it. So we talk about the lows, and then now we go 3 years in, your third year as a head coach, and now we're talking about a team led by Blake Arnett and your son George Hinkle III, and we go, just removed from all that losing streak to conference and district champions. As the person that took the program over at its lowest, how sweet was it to take them back to the top?
Well, I mean, like I said before, the young men are the ones who make the plays. Blake, I played with his uncles, Kenny Haley and Pat Haley, and so they were. He was an outstanding quarterback, outstanding athlete. But like I said before, the list goes on of athletes. You had Jacob Nude, you had George, you had. Vatterott. I mean, like I said, there's some of the young men I can't remember, but there's a whole list of young men there that really helped that team to be where it was at. You got, like I said, you got receivers, and like I said, some of the names, Tanner Brown, comes to mind, and so there was just there was a lot of players there. And don't get me wrong, we had Coach Anderson. There was Coach Brett Schnelly was there. Coach Herlico was there. Coach Mayfield, Coach Rutherford. I mean, the list. There's just tons of coaches that came together, and put a good plan together. Put a good offensive plan together. Put a good defensive plan together. We put a good special teams plan together, and was able to win the conference. And we had to go back to Union and win it. And so, Coach Eckley, he and I still kind of talk about that from time to time, about the win and what took place. But it is what it is. It's over now. So
yeah, I remember the hook and ladder was a big play up there at the Union game. That was a pretty sweet play down the sideline for a big touchdown. I can actually look out into the hallway here, and I could see our record board. I could name a couple other guys for you. Kyle Burgess, Alex Gentry, on the receiving side of things. Yeah, there was a lot of talent on that team.
It was. Yep.
So as we kind of get towards the end of this, though, I'll ask you this. Do you miss coaching now that you've been out of it for a while? I mean...
Well, I mean, and also Marco Romano was on that team too, and he was a really good player, and like I said, Nick Buchanan was there. There's just, like I said, there's just so many young men that were there. A part of that team was able to put things together. As far as missing the game, my body and the time spending time with my family and my wife, it has been something that has. Coaching just coaching just takes up so much time, and it's better now than what it was then, and so I really don't miss it. I enjoy the time. I enjoy reflecting back on some of those things, but now as far as being able to go and watch football, watch it on TV, watch some of the athletes that we see now. You think about it and you say, wow, there was a time when I was there, but now the time is moving on. There's a few things that are more important than that.
So if coaching's not necessarily in your future, what about maybe even a different role as maybe a guest analyst when we get into the next football season here on Pacific Indians Chatter?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if I get the opportunity.
As we're going to wrap this up now, is there anything else that you can think of from any of your time at Pacific? I do know we talked earlier about you being a multi-sport athlete, and that's something that's kind of happening across the board of specialization. Do you think it's still important for kids to play as many sports as possible, or?
Yeah, I still think it is. I think it's for young men, young women to get involved in different sports, whether with football and basketball and track and baseball and golf, and just to be an all-around athlete, because you never know where life is going to take you to. Same way with our female athletes. They have the softball, the volleyball, basketball, track, and it really helps you with your coordination. It helps you with all the things that you were going to face in life, because each coach has a different mentality. They got a different attitude, and so that helps you to deal with things that you may have to deal with on the job. And so I think it's important that the young men and young women continue to play different sports if they're able to, and be involved in other sports.
And like we said earlier, this summer we'll maybe have you back in and we get Byron if he's in town, or we can get him on the phone. That could be a fun one. I don't even think I need to talk. I could just let you guys maybe run the whole thing. It would be a pretty good episode. It'd probably eat up 30 minutes and just a snap of a finger with you guys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since we're about to wrap up, I guess I'll see you out on a golf course somewhere pretty soon, maybe even tonight.
Again, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having us. And that'll do it with our guest, former Pacific head football coach George Hinkle, conference champion and district champion. Stay tuned for our episode next week. And until next week, keep up the chatter.